Saturday, June 7th, 1:49 p.m. New York time. Welcome back, investors, to Winning Wall Street's Money. Going to go over the currencies, the major currencies against the US dollar. We also have big pending event this month. That'd be Wednesday, June 18th. The Federal Open Markets Committee would be meeting. They would be voting to either change or leave interest rates alone. As well, they would do a press release of the past several weeks and months, as well as going forward, what they expect the U.S. economy to be in. We also have Congress. The Senate side of Congress has the pending bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, to vote on. It did pass the House, got moved over to the Senate. I read quite a bit of it. It's got a lot of horrible stuff in it. One of the big things is, spelled out, is to remove all taxes on suppressors, silencers sold in the United States. They took time to include that in the bill, but not to include term limits for Congress members and federal judges. Okay, enough on that. Let's go look at the US dollar index. US dollar index, the major currencies that make up the US dollar index. The euro makes up about 57% of it. Japanese yen makes up about 13%. The British pound makes up about 12%. Canadian dollar about 10%. The Swiss krone about 4.5%. And the Swiss franc about 4%. Those are major currencies in the US dollar index. The Federal Reserve also has currencies from other nations in its depository. And those changes the percentage of how much they hold on those. But this is the US dollar index I'm showing you that's tradable. You could do the index in the futures market, as well as the stock market, and in the options market for the futures and the stocks, as well as you could trade the pairs in the Forex market and the futures market. A lot of opportunities. So here we're looking at 5 years of history on the US dollar index. Each candle makes a week. Look at the bottom left, the past 5 years, and the top center, the high, the past 5 years. So this year, here's the low of this year, the yellow horizontal line, and here's the high this year. Very close to retesting the lows of this year again. Okay, see this top green zone? That was accumulation period. Last year, markup phase. This year, distribution, markdown phase. So again, this is a leg from here to here. And I'm going to show you on a Fibonacci, that tool, take the high and the low of this year. This is green horizontal line. That's a 0.382 of this trend down. We did not even get to test that. Nope. What we did was reverse before we even tested that momentum's downside. So that means higher probability we're going to break the low of this year and do a distance based on Fibonacci. This high, that bottom low, that's an A to B, bottom of this year, B, and then this swing point here, C. So the C to D leg, which is in right now, C to D leg, has a high probability of being the same length about from A to B. Well, you do the math and you see where it brings us. A lot lower below the zone. That means if you hold US dollars, it costs you more in buying power. Another way to see inflation getting worse for certain people. That's not good. Just because one changes the interest rates, as some people are asking the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rates, and some people say it needs to be raised, that alone does not fix the problem. A lot of people understand that the deficit is growing. We're spending more money than we take in tax revenue. So most of the fault lies on the leadership of Congress and the leadership of the executive branch, aka the White House. Federal Reserve is very limited they can do. Federal Reserve does not write the paycheck. Nope, that's Congress that writes the paycheck. And the President of the United States, aka the executive branch that signs the paycheck. Let's go look at the major currencies in the US dollar index, as well as some other ones. Actually, let me zoom in here and show you. So this week, we made a lower low, lower high. Look at that. The big wick went down and tested this wick off this green candle, and buyer stepped in here. Okay, good. That's a good thing. We closed red back inside the body of the prior candle. That's good too. Buyers coming down here, willing to buy down here. They're speculating. We're going to go higher. They bought there. Yeah, we might go here to this midpoint. Or we might try to do a retest of this impulse move down. So this big red candle and big impulse move down. Well, if you're bearish, one could be waiting up there to look to do the bearish trades. That's a trade idea I just showed you that I'm considering to do. Not necessarily using the US dollar. There's other currencies I might trade inverse. But that would be just for my Patreon members. I'll be sharing that with on the higher level, on the tier 2 or 3. Let's go to the other currencies inside the US dollar. Most of these I'm going to show you, if they have a forward slash to the left of it, they trade in the futures market. If they're 6 letters, well, then they trade in the Forex market. So in the futures market, the currencies, I'll stand corrected. The futures exchanges, there's different futures exchanges. The ones I'm going to show you are the CME futures. And these are currencies that trade in CME futures. The symbols start with forward slash and the currencies start with 6 and then the letter. Got it? In the CME futures exchange, there's more than one futures exchange. The CME futures exchange, if you're looking to trade, their financial instruments all start with a forward slash, like you see here. And because currencies, they have them start with the number 6 and the letter representing. Well, this is E representing the euro. You'll see more of that as we go forward. Again, 5-year history. Each candle's a week on the euro. Again, I shared with you, the euro is the largest weighted average currency in the US dollar index. Doesn't mean their economy is necessarily better than ours. But again, the confidence to be out of US dollars and go into another currency that has good liquidity is the euro. Understand that. Again, it doesn't mean the European economy is better. You know, some people might want to do the physical gold because why? Commodities are priced in US dollars. So typically when the dollar goes weaker, you see commodities go higher. There's several categories of commodities, one of them being metals. Yep. So again, look at this red zone, the high this year, red horizontal line, the low this year, inverse of the US dollar. Past week, look at that, bearish pin bar, big wick on the top. So one would expect likely we're going to go lower and maybe test this sweet spot down here. Look, we had that big green candle, impulse move up, that was strong. That red candle the week after, deep retracement, big wick, buyer stepped in, and this sweet spot up here. So again, if you're bullish, one could be looking for that retracement to buying at a sweet spot. Japanese yen. Yep. Last year made that low of the past 5 years. And then this year, here's the low. And then we had this market structure, right? We did not retest the low from here. Nope. We had a market structure here, rotate, reversal. Big green candle, impulse move up. Another big impulse move up. Went up, did not take out the high of last year yet. Nope. We had a market structure, reversal. Big wick on the top, already labeled midpoint. And then we had that retracement, bullish pin bar. Nice, the trigger to go long, followed by a big impulse move up. I'll zoom up in. That big green candle, impulse move up. Another big retracement, big wick. And look what happened this week. The inside candle, that means indecision on that period of time. Solid body equivalent to a red. So it closed down here, testing this midpoint. Yep. So one might see a deeper retracement further. Opportunity if it bullish the yen to be looking buying these pullbacks. British pound. Breaking news. Made a new high for the year. Again, I said British pound is the third largest currency in the US dollar, representing almost 12% of the US dollar. So we know the US dollar is near retesting the low of this year, but the British pound made a new high for the year. British pound strong like bull. Interesting. Yep. So here's another high, 2022, gunning up. Nice. Big green candle, big impulse move up, and higher high. So I'm going to adjust this now. But again, we made a new high for the year. Outstanding. Hey, if you heard on the media from any place, word of mouth, somebody, radio, TV, blogs, other than what I just shared with you, please let me know where you heard the British pound this past week made a new high for the year against the dollar. I have not heard it from anybody. Mm-hmm. So I'm sharing with you. It's important to know, especially if you're taking the time to listen to this. You understand the importance. There's been no trade deal made with the United States and England yet, but the British pound is gaining strength against the US dollar. Now we're looking at the Australian dollar. This year, look, the past 5 years, Australian dollar has been at the low. It's performing better than the Japanese yen. Remember the Japanese yen I showed you? Last year was the low. So the British pound's slower. Share some insight. Sorry, the Australian dollar here, the Australian dollar. I showed you last year the Japanese yen was at the low. So this year, the Australian dollar was at the lower. Again, so the Japanese yen was performing better. But the difference in the economies of Japan, big difference. In Japan, they import a lot of fossil fuels and metals. Australia has large quantities of fossil fuels to export, one of them being the dirtiest fossil fuel, coal. And then they also have a huge amount of metals, golds. So as the dollar declines, US dollar declines, and demand for coal and metals go higher, that helps the economy of Australia. Same with New Zealand, Canada. Well, if you're looking here, yellow candle, inside candle. Last week was the all-time high. We did not take that out, inside candle. And look, this red candle impulse moved down. See that blue horizontal line? There's still sellers up there. We have not closed above it. We broke above it, but failed to close above it. That's concerning right here. This is consolidation. You may see distribution, may see pullback. So apparently there's some big concern right there occurring. Now, neighbors to the north, Canadian dollar. It also made a new high for the year. Beautiful. Look at that. Prior week, huge impulse move up, that big green candle. And then we had that retracement on that red candle. Nice buying opportunity. And new high for the year. Impressive. So we'll adjust this. There we go. British pound, Canadian dollars, new highs. Queen Mother helping out, maybe. Wink, wink. Swiss franc. Consider a safe haven currency, just like the Japanese yen, but it's not an all-time high. Nope. Yeah. The past 5 years, this year made the high, and then we did a market structure and rotated. And look at this past week. Dodgy candle, very suspicious. Mm-hmm. Okay. We're going to look at some other currencies, such as the Mexican peso. Here's the past 5 years. Last year was the high, and the low was all the way back here. Well, this year made a new high. The Mexican peso made a new high against the US dollar. Strong bullish candle. Look at that big body. Impressive. Have you heard anybody report that news? Yep. Let's adjust this. Here we go. Again, it costs more money to import products now from Mexico. There's a lot of products manufactured in Mexico that go to the United States and Canada. There's also a lot of products Mexico imports, materials from other countries, products from other countries, and send them some over the border to the United States. You're paying more for it. Do you have less buying power? Unless your salary's going up, your income's going up. Now you have more choices you have to consider of what luxury items may cut back on. The Chinese yuan, very close to the low of the year. Yep. This year was the high for the past 5 years. We had that big red candle, big impulse move down. Look, consolidation the past few weeks here. So again, one would expect if things continue, because now it's consolidating, building energy, you may see a new low and a deeper retracement. So this big green candle was an impulse move up last year. I labeled it the midpoint right there. So it makes sense. You got some buyers here stepping in because they are thinking what? They're speculating. This is the place to buy. They may be wrong. And we may have a sell-off, and then they're on the wrong side of the trade. We can have a panic selling go even lower. And into Bitcoin. This year did make the all-time new high. Right there. The week after that was an inside candle indecision. We broke below the inside candle. So notice this gray box, the end of last year, beginning this year, huge consolidation, building a lot of energy there, broke out of it, panic selling, coming down here, made that new low, and then made a lower low. Again, buyers stepping in at those wicks, these big wicks. Nice opportunity. Made a market structure change, the trend up, broke the highs of this year that was here, filled to close above it. That was concerning. Inside candle up there, big wick on the top, that was concerning. So apparently what? It's a distribution phase. Smart money selling up there. It's spending less time up there until we have reversal, higher highs, higher lows. The current momentum is down. Well, we tested the sweet spot right here. Big wick on there. Test here. See these two big wicks? Consolidation phase. So one should be concerned. You want to see a fast move up here, not to keep dragging out here to prove itself. Let's see if we're going to get, again, this is one trend. See if we're going to be a major current pullback. Let's do a Fibonacci. There we go, the fib. Right above that sweet spot. Yep. So we're going to expect if we're going to have that rotation here, we go up a lot higher. Time will tell. Thank you as always, spending just a little time with me. That's it for the video. Thank you for watching.